All right, so for this game, looks like we have what is essentially just a straight sequencing game. We have a bunch of elements. We have a bunch of spots, 7 specifically, so we'll just set that up accordingly. The elements themselves happen to be FGH, and then we've got JKLM. And from there, I suppose we can just go straight into the rules. For the record, there's nothing really out of the ordinary here, right? Every single person goes exactly once. This is pretty much a textbook sequencing game. So the first rule, at least 2 of the other nurses must go in between H and M. So it's a bit of an involved rule, but essentially this tells us that in between H and M, we're going to have at least 2 spaces. I'll indicate that there could be more with a little plus over there. And of course, we also don't know which one's earlier or later, so I'll add a double-sided arrow here to show that this can go in either direction, but essentially at least 2 spaces between these guys. Next, G's session must be on the day before K's, so essentially we have to have what looks like a GK kind of block. Now, actually, yeah, we can't really do much with that in terms of these rules, because it could fit in between them or not. So yeah, let's keep going. J has to go later than M. Now we might be able to incorporate that with the M, but since we don't really know whether the M and the H, which way they're going to go, it's going to get a bit messy. So I'll just do that as a separate rule. J has to be later than, so M has to go essentially before the J. Next, F has to be earlier than K, but later than L. Ooh, so that's quite a bit. So wait a minute, we have a K on the board already, so let's use that. We know that this F has to go before the K, and also F has to go later than L. So we kind of have this LF followed by a GK block. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, let's keep going. Last rule tells us that L cannot go second. Now, on its own, the fact that L cannot go into 2 will leave a reminder on the board here as well. That on its own doesn't seem to, restrict that much. The fact that L can't go second can go virtually anywhere else. But these kind of rules should always kind of raise an eyebrow because they're an awkwardly specific thing to restrict. And it kind of raises 2 questions. It raises the question of if L can't go second, then what could have gone second? And alternatively, it also raises the question of if L can't go second, where could the L potentially go? Now, in terms of what could go second, to be fair, it feels like a lot. The GK block obviously can't, right, because it has to go after F and L, but everybody else almost, it seems pretty open. The L, on the other hand, if L can't go second, the thing is we know that L is tied to all of these other guys, so that might be worth exploring. So what's the latest that we can push the L, really? I suppose we could put the L into position 4, and that would force F, the GK, into 5, 6, 7. So you would just have all of this locked out with LF, GK. But wait, no, that's not going to work because these guys, right, H and M have to be at least 2 apart. If we lock LF, GK in 4 through 7, then H and M are going to be stuck between the first 3, which means really the L seemingly can only go into 1 or 3. And that, you'll notice, is pretty restrictive. In fact, if we put L into 3, can we even do that? And actually maybe, because if we have F, G, and K, they can kind of move around between 4 through 7. So we could leave open a spot somewhere down there to allow for the H and M. So that's not too bad. Although I suppose if we had the L, if we had an L over here, I guess F, G, and K are going to take up 3 spots over there. And then one of H and M is going to join them as well, right? So that's something. Oh, and wait a minute, it wouldn't even be M because we couldn't fit M before J. You know what, this actually might be worth exhausting. So what we could do, and at this stage, if you notice that there's something very restrictive and you might be able to kind of make do with it, we could exhaust this. We can play this into the 2 major templates. We can say, you know what, either L is going to go here or L is going to go there, and we can see where that takes us. Now, the second scenario is the more interesting one that we just kind of touched on. So what's going to happen here is in these 4 positions rather, we're going to have F, G, and K to some degree. And we're also going to have one of these 2 guys, right? Because we can't fit both of them over here. So one of them is going to have to bounce onto this side of the board. Except it can't be M because we wouldn't have room for the J to follow. So really, over here somewhere, we're going to have H, we're going to have F, and then G and K to follow. In fact, we can kind of reserve those spots with something like H/F before the GK block. So we don't know exactly who's who on this side of the board, but essentially these guys are going to lock it all out, which means that on this side of the board, we're just left with, oh yeah, it's M and J, and they will just take up spots 1 and 2 because we have to have M specifically before J. So that's actually a pretty good start. Now, in the top scenario, I feel like we're going to be a lot more flexible, aren't we? So obviously, H and M still need to be separated, but I mean, the fact that they could go either way seems pretty flexible. F, G, and K, I mean, we can move them around quite a bit. So you know what, let's run with this. This is a pretty good place to start. The questions themselves. So the first question here we have is question number 18, which is what could be the sequence of the setup? And as usual, we do this by the original text of the rules. First rule told us that at least 2 have to go between H and M. So let's go through, see if anything violates that. A looks okay, B looks okay, C looks fine, D looks fine, and E does not. So E has only L between M and H. That's not going to work. We can get rid of that. Actually, for that matter, L is also second, so that also wouldn't have worked either way. Anyways, let's keep going. G has to go the day before K, so we have to have a GK block. A is good, B is good, C is good, D is good as well. Actually, looks like they all have a GK block, so let's keep going. Next, J has to go later than M, so M before J. So A, B are fine, C is not. We have a J in first, which is not cool, and D looks okay. Next, we said that F has to go before K and after L. So essentially, it's L, F, K. Let's see if anything violates that. Answer choice A already doesn't work. We can't have F going first. Answer choice B, L, F, K is legit. Answer choice D, L, F, and K also looks pretty good. So we're just down to answer choices B and D. And last rule, L can't go second. Oh yeah, there it is. Answer choice B gets disqualified. That leaves us with answer choice D as the best answer to question number 18. And I suppose, as usual, we can plug that into the board. Answer choice D says L, M, F, and then we have J, G, K, H. Next, so let's take a look at the local question. So question number 20 is our first local, and it says, if J happens to be third, well, the thing is right away, if you look at our exhaustions here, if J is third, then we're definitely not in this template. So we're definitely going to be in that template, which means that if J is third, we know that L would have had to be first. Moreover, I suppose we also know that M has to go before J, so we can lock that in place. What else do we know? Now, M and H have to be at least 2 apart, so I suppose H can't go here. H is going to have to go somewhere down there. And then we're just left with FGK. So I suppose, you know what? The fourth position, it can't be an H, and it also is not going to be the GK block. I suppose this is going to have to be an F. There's nothing else that could go fourth. And then down here somewhere, we're just going to have to shuffle the GK block with the H, who, yeah, it's flexible there. So the question now asks, what could be true? M1? Definitely not. K5? No, I guess it can't, because if you put a K here, then G would have to go prior. That's also not going to work. Could we do H6? And actually no as well, because if you put an H here, then the GK block is going to be split between 5 and 7. That's also not going to fly. Answer choice D, G5. Could we do that? And maybe if you put G5, then K would go here, and H could potentially go in 7. I think we can make that work. So answer choice D is viable. Just in case though, F2, and no, there's already an M there. So the best answer to question 20 is D. Next, question number 21. Let's take a look. If K is earlier than M, so if we have a K before M, so again, you'll notice that this template is not going to work if K is earlier than M. So it looks like we are under the first template where L would have had to be first. And oh wow, if K is earlier than M, then this whole thing kind of chains up. So you know what, let's just put that on the side. We're going to have L, F, GK block, M, and then J. Now that's pretty much everybody except for H, right? But what does that tell us? I suppose, so for example, there's no way to put H near the M, right? Because H and M have to be 2 spaces apart. So since this is everybody except for H, if we lock down the H, everybody else would fall into place. So H and 7, for example, wouldn't really work, would it? Because then J would have to go into 6, and then M would have to go into 5. They would be too close. So if H is not going to be in 7, then the only other person who could go 7 now is the J. The same thing applies to the 6. If you put the H into the 6th position, then M would get forced into 5. That's not cool. So the only person who can really go into 6 is M. And then from there, I guess we can say that since we know where the M goes, the H would have to go 3 or earlier, potentially. So the GK block now will have to go into 4 and 5 since nobody else could. And I guess what that means is that H and F are just going to flip between the last 2 positions. So that's pretty good. The question now asks, who could go on the 3rd? And I guess it would be H or F. F is not an option, but H is. So the best answer to question 21 is B. Next, number 22. So if G is on the 5th, well, I guess let's take a look once again. If G is on the 5th, I suppose that would be consistent with both of these templates, because in this template, the G could have gone into this position. That actually seems okay. So you know what, let's see what we can do with this fresh. If we put G into 5, then K would have to go into 6 because of the GK block. Now, L, I suppose L could still go into 1 or 3. We still have flexibility there, don't we? Can we do anything else? What about the H and M? Actually, let's talk about that. So H and M, I suppose either we're going to have them in 1 and 4, or alternatively, one of them is going to have to go into position 7, aren't they? But could we do 1 and 4? If we put H and M one way or the other into 1 and 4, oh, that's not going to fly, because that would force the L and the F, which have to go before G and K. They'll have to go into 2 and 3, but L can't go into 2. So we cannot do H and M into 1 and 4. That's not going to work. So one of them is going to get shoved into 7, but it's not going to be M because M has to go before J. So we know that H is definitely going to have to go into 7 now. There we go. And then beyond that, can we do much more? I suppose M is flexible. We still have to have M before J almost anywhere here, and then we have to have L before F. You know what? I think we have a little bit of movement. Let's see what we can do. The question asks, what now must be true? Answer choice A, F3, and I don't think we resolved that. Answer choice B, H7, there it is. H does have to go 7th. Best answer to question number 22 is B. Next, question number 23. L's session could be on which one of the following days? Well, to be honest, we actually should have gone to question number 19 because that was our first global question, but we can answer this question outright. We already know that L can only go on days 1 or 3. So the best answer to 23 becomes answer choice A. Lastly, question number 19, the one global question that we skipped. Let's take a look. J cannot go into which of these days? Now we have a pretty decent amount of history and exhaustion here. So I mean, in this template, we've seen J in 2. We know J has gone in 3. We've seen him in 4. And we've seen him in 7. So 2, 3, 4, 7, we can cross those off. That's A, that's B, and E. So now we're really just down to answer choices C and D, specifically 5 or 6. Now between positions 5 and 6, worst case scenario, we can just kind of quickly try them out and see what happens. I've got a bit of a feeling though that it might be more so 6, because if we put the J into 6, it might get in the way of the GK block because you're leaving this kind of one open spot over here. So you know what, let's just run that and see where it takes us. If we put the J into position number 6, could we make this work? Although I suppose we could actually maybe just put the H into 7. That actually might be workable the way that we did over there. And if we do, this actually might be okay. So the rest of this, we just have to have LFGK. But yeah, why couldn't we do something like maybe L goes into 1 and M could go into 2 just to keep it away from the H, and then F, G, K could go into 3, 4, 5. That actually seems okay. I don't think we broke anything here. So it actually looks like I was off. Answer choice D seemingly would work. Let's just confirm. Let's see what happens if we try to put the J into position number 5. I'm going to guess that the HM kind of split is going to be a problem. So if we did this, I suppose the GK block, okay, so we definitely can't do LFGK because then H and M are going to be over here, and that's wrong on several levels. So the GK block can't go on this side, so that would force the GK block to go into 6 and 7. And now what are we left with? We're left with L, F, H, and M. Now H and M, though, are going to, there we go, they're going to have to be 2 spaces apart. But if we do that, if we put H and M into 1 and 4 one way or the other, then we're going to be stuck with L and F in 2 and 3, but L cannot go in second. So there we go. J could not go into the 5th position. Best answer choice here is answer choice C for question number 19. For the record, if you were tight on time, you could have selected C as soon as you confirmed that answer choice D would have been fine. But yeah, if you wanted to make sure, there it is.